to watch. But we're watching now. Dr. Dupree's goal for Marshall utilization is 80% by 2022. Bringing in 120 kids from out of the zone over 4 years will keep Marshall about 54% utilized by 2022. We're watching. Where's our Title I funding? We're watching. How will Marshall ever measure up in the eyes of the community while it's treated as an outsider and outlier by our administration? Per Ms. James, your #1 job is improving student achievement. What will early college do for the existing 1,200 Marshall students and the incoming students who aren't part of the 70? We're watching, and we are all Marshall. Will you do the right thing?
Please hold your applause so we can get through these. Mrs. Stephanie Brown. You have 2 minutes. Mr. Rosenthal will give you a 30-second warning.
Tammy just about said it all, but I do have one question regarding the P-TECH and how was it not selected for Marshall? So that's a question I'd like to ask. And then when we talk about the students that are currently there, and I know that you're talking about bringing perhaps 70 students that are already zoned to Marshall, 30 from the outside. So how is that going to increase our capacity when 70 would be going there anyway? Also, what are we doing here? I mean, we're looking at the rezoning, and yes, we did get what Quail Valley was feeling because of the publicity and the non-marketing or the value that's put on the Marshall community. I wouldn't want to go there either. But at the same time, like Tammy said, three out of the 4 options were to be zoned to Marshall. We were not asking for everybody at Quail Valley because that's silly to pick up an entire school and put it over at Marshall when probably most of them are zoned closer to Elkins. But there are some zip codes, 77489, a community, and I can't ever think of the name, but it's Quail something East, South, right there across from Pudorama, same zip code, 77489, and some more communities like the Woods that are closer to Marshall would probably help in the capacity without even doing a lot of rezoning. So I've asked that of Mr. Leopold before we even went into the zoning focus group, because there are addresses that could be zoned to Marshall without looking at the rezoning that you have now. We need students. You guys took that neighborhood away from us without us knowing about it, and we'd like you to look into that and give us back those students so we can work with our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Up next is Jerry Monroe. Mr. Monroe, you have 2 minutes. Mr. Rosenthal will give you a 30-second warning.
Young man, earlier, I'm unapologetically black. And you said, as you were speaking about African-American schools, we're doing y'all a favor. Watch your mouth. Who is y'all? I just want to let you know we watching you. Did you engage the community? You didn't sleep during Christmas, and I didn't either. I worked all Christmas and New Year's. And I talked to a whole bunch of Marshall people that were willing to sit down with Fort Bend ISD. You forgot where they were located? It was easy for me to find them. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the keys to TEA for Marshall, right? Which one of y'all going to tell Marath what he can and cannot do with Marshall High School once he gets it? That means if he wants basketball gone, it's gone. Marshall High School is being done the same way that Jones High School was done. You gonna get the keys to the crazy man in Austin? Say, man, these people want something, so I'm gonna tell you how we gonna get it. Somebody send a message to me, you gonna ignore me. I doubt that.
30 seconds.
If you don't take the time to listen to the little crazy man, I'm going to affect your ADA. You will not make any money off those black kids until you sit down with that black community.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Next up is Regina Gardner and Monica Riley.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone. Monica and I are the lead organizers for Reclaim the Village, and we're advocates in the community. We were invited out to serve on the steering committee at Willow Ridge. The process was a good one. We went out. We felt like we were a part of the grouping. We learned a lot about the P-TECH and early college program. But we were able to ask all of the tough questions that we needed to ask, and a lot of them were answered tonight, but not all of them. So we just want to do our job as advocates and make sure that all of the tough questions about the P-TECH program and the early college are answered before you guys make your decision to approve the program. We also wanted to show our support for the Thurgood feeder pattern. We were under the impression that that the community members were not at the table as we were in the planning and the processing, and because we are advocates in the community, we support community being at the table. But I think that as far as what you guys testified to or talked about tonight, you are going to allow them to be a part of that process. So
30 seconds.
We're glad about that. And we will also want to leave these written points that we would like to have answered and clarified before you guys approve that program. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, Jeff Peterson.
Good evening. 2 minutes is hardly enough time to talk about all the issues I have with this proposal for the rezoning of the high schools, but I'll try to touch on a few highlights real quickly and briefly. One of the issues is that the email was sent out 9 p.m. on a Friday night for a meeting on Monday morning, or Monday evening, which was pretty disingenuous, I'd say, if you really cared about community feedback. Additionally, the proposal does not address many of the major issues that are presented to the community. Marshall's spoken, Willow Ridge has spoken, also Ridgepoint. The proposal does nothing to really alleviate the overpopulation at Ridgepoint, and that's probably what I'm going to talk most about because I'm in the Schiff Elementary Zone feeder pattern, which has been disproportionately impacted by all of these rezoning efforts. Over the past 10 years, they've been rezoned 5 times, with another proposal today, right? And actually 2 more. Thank you very much, because once the new school is built, rezone again. So it's continuous, and it's been only accelerated over the past several years. Let me organize my thoughts a little bit. As a part of the proposed alleviation of the overcrowding at Ridgepoint, you've shuffled a small section of Sienna to Hightower. Probably one of the smallest sections
30 seconds.
to Hightower. And to answer one of the questions, we have 134 students that are graduating from Schiff Elementary School this year. 134 students, small section being picked on because we're not allowed voice. I'll say on a personal note, I'm the father of 4 band ISD children. Just 2 years ago, Schiff Elementary Zone was the subject of heavy rezoning. My 5th grader lost 2 of his best friends to that rezoning. They were zoned to another school. He no longer interacts with those 2
Time's
on a
up.
regular basis. My 8th grade daughter also was split when she went to 6th grade because they had a divided feeder pattern. She went to First Colony, her friends went to Baines. Last year,
Thank you, sir.
she got sent, they got rezoned back to Baines, and now she's being rezoned again. It's not right, it's wrong, and these kids are valuable.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments. Please hold your applause. Next, Michaela Ruggs.
Good evening. Just like the gentleman before me, I don't agree with what's being proposed. The entire purpose of this exercise is to rebalance enrollment for the high schools. The proposed ideas Do not do that. It's not what's in the best interest of the students. It does not cause the least amount of disruption. It does not fix the educational issues at Marshall or at Willow Ridge, and it doesn't meet the needs of what you were proposing initially. For me, I represent the Parks community. I live in a community directly across the street from Hightower High School. I live in Winfield Lakes. Other students live in Cambridge Fall. But Fresno is a community. My child has been swimming since age 5. Your child swam with my child. And Fresno is a united community. We help each other. You're gonna rezone my child to Willow Ridge that doesn't even have a swim team. So she's gonna lose her opportunity for athletic scholarships. You're gonna rezone my child to Willow Ridge. She's gonna lose the educational opportunities that she would have at Hightower and lose her ability for academic scholarships. I'm a single parent. So for me, this is a big deal. And a lot of the parents in the Winfield Lakes and Cambridge communities, they're single parents, 2 working parents, and they need that proximity. It makes no sense to move those kids from directly across the street to busing them, because Chimney Rock is not open that way. And busing them all the way around to be able to go to Willow Ridge just to try and throw kids at a problem. Before you throw those kids at the problem, you need to fix the educational disparities. If you want people to use that high school, you need that high school to be treated the same way as every other high school in the district. Everybody should have the same opportunity for equal education. No one should be cut short just because of socioeconomic status or where they live on what side of the highway. And they definitely shouldn't be put in a position where they have to be moved 25 minutes away when there's a high school across the street. For my child, it's a big
Thank
deal.
you, ma'am.
I have a single daughter. And to get to school at 7:15 in the morning, chances are she's going to be standing at the bus stop by herself prior to 6 a.m. And most of you adults don't even wake up at that time. And that's
Thank
not
you,
fair
ma'am.
to these kids.
We appreciate your comment.
I appreciate you listening, and I really hope you take in consideration that this is not fair to these kids. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Please hold your applause. Next, Lafayette Howell. Mrs. Jones, you'll be next. Yes, sir.
2 minutes? Okay, very good. How can Fort Bend ISD provide a consistently high-quality education experience with consistently high outcomes, regardless of location or socioeconomic status? That seems to be the fundamental problem and the theme everyone has touched on. We've all heard the famous legal doctrine that separate but unequal education is not legal and has since been overturned. However, what we are seeing today in social media and private conversations or at the store, just about everywhere, is an implied feeling that segregation and all its ugliness is rearing its toxic and judgmental head. Fort Bend ISD has 3 high schools ranked in the top 50 out of 1,191 schools in the country, according to collegesimply.com. Clements, Austin, and Dulles rank 6, 24, and 44 respectively. Ridge Point was opened in 2010, 9 years after we moved here, and according to the same source, Ridge Point is ranked 56 in the state. Yet Thurgood Marshall languishes at 1,036 and Willow Ridge at 927. The issue and uproar about rezoning our sons and daughters from a higher performing school in Elkins, for example, which is ranked 134, to a school that is ranked 7 times lower in favor of kids who live in a newer community that was not designed to accommodate the unending construction.
30 seconds.
I would submit this is a symptom and not the problem. FBN ISD has demonstrated the ability to build brand new schools which are not equal in terms of what the results are showing from the rankings comparison. While I support option 2 as the best course for now, how will Fort Bend ISD leadership improve the educational outcomes at schools that need to change the most?
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Jones, you'll have 2 minutes and a 30-second warning.
Okay. My son swims also, and he attends Marshall High School.
And it was not enough student, this wasn't part of my speech, but it wasn't enough student participation in the school for him to swim in the meets he would like to swim in, so he dropped out of swimming. And he represented Marshall quite well for the first 2 years, and now he plays tennis. So that's what we're up against, and thought I'd put that out there, because when you made your comment, ma'am, I thought about my son. However, for the past couple of months, I've been in the district 27 years. I have 3 older kids, and my youngest one is in the 11th grade. And all I've been listening to is so many disgruntled parents that think that they are being bussed into our school. I have had to answer questions, numerous ones, that I wasn't really thinking I was going to be answering. And we were probably trying to prepare for our state championship ride off into a few months back in November. One parent said to me, well, my home value is going to go down if we come to Marshall. I was like, wow, where did that come from? Someone else said, why is Marshall failing? Can you tell me that? And I said, you know what, let me do a little homework. So I reached out to an attorney today, and we had a conversation over the phone, because I didn't know where this was going. And after listening to so many people that are so unhappy, and we've been dealing with Marshall for the past 15 years.
30 seconds.
And to make a long story short, as the attorney told to me, she said, well, ma'am, sounds like you all have a case that took place back in the early 60s, Brown versus Board of Education. And she said many of those attorneys that practiced back in the 60s are no longer practicing that way, because we want to hope that schools now are equal in the educating of our students. And we see that's not the case. I don't understand why we cannot receive the quality education throughout the district. If we were, like was mentioned earlier, we would not be having this conversation. We'll be talking about rezoning. You'll be coming to my school, and it'll be okay, because we would have the same programs. But that is not the case. I don't understand why we pay our taxes just like everyone else. We want the same type of respect. Marshall, only 2 schools in the history of Fort Bend ISD has ever gone to state in football: Willow Ridge and Marshall High School. And we have not gotten the respect that we need from the district. We want a principal that backs the program. We are a loving family within Marshall. I have served on the bond referendum back in 2000, whatever that was, when Jennings was here, and on the focus group. I found it ironically you could not locate me for a steering committee.
Out of respect to the others, we appreciate you. Thank you. All right. May I have a motion to adjourn? Go ahead, Mrs. Tossan.
So this is our meeting, so we'll talk to you guys after. But
she submitted online and has the agreement, like the response.
What was her name, ma'am?
Lauren McCoy. And I did as well.
Lauren McCoy. I got a file at 14 from Vienna, Alvarado.
I don't see it here. That doesn't mean it's not here, but please come up and speak.
And Elizabeth Lockett.
All right. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Go for it. You'll have 2 minutes and a 30-second warning.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Lauren McCoy. I'm a resident of Quail Valley. I'm actually going to read a letter on behalf of Ms. Rochelle Galloway, who is actually unable to attend tonight's meeting because of a death in the family. Excuse me. She says, my story is this. I'm a divorced mother of one who attends a Fort Bend middle school involved in the recent zoning talks. We moved to Texas a little before me leaving the Navy and decided on Pearland, given the proximity to Houston and the educational opportunities within the school district. My son was quickly zoned to another school after completing his first school year. We were sent to a school roughly 4 miles away, as opposed to my son remaining at an elementary school that was barely 1 mile away. He remained there until we moved into the Fort Bend area, and if we still lived in that area, my son would attend Hightower. While I've spent a significant amount of time interacting with youth from the surrounding area, I opted to move into an area that was more culturally and ethnically diverse. We also sought an area that would allow my son to attend a high school that would have the same diversity. Our choice was Elkins. My son is not considered low performing, but happens to be black. We've experienced a form of bullying from both sides. He's been made fun of for being a GT student who outperforms others, and he has also been made fun of for not looking like other GT students. When these recent talks came up, I took the initiative to learn more about the schools near me and talked with other parents and educators from Marshall and Willow Ridge, as well as other employees from FBISD. What has been most heartbreaking was interacting with others who looked like me but embraced the idea of a predominantly all black and brown high school. This is not what I've taught my son. This is not my experience with serving in the Navy. And knowing that I planned and prepared for providing my son a better opportunity within the public school system, this hurts and is not the way forward. I am not Mrs. Rochelle Galloway, but I am another parent who has invested in neighborhoods here and who's invested in the education of my kids. And really, that's why all the parents are here, is that we want an equitable opportunity for our kids to have the opportunity to get an equitable education. And I mean, we've heard you say that, and we've heard that said. So I would encourage you guys to focus on those solutions that will solve for all children having an equitable education that equips them for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please hold your applause. You'll have 2 minutes as well.
My name is Elizabeth Lockett. I am a product of Fort Bend County Schools. I went to Ridgegate Elementary, Briargate Elementary, Christa McCullough Middle School. I ultimately went to Rice University, the University of Texas School of Law. Fort Bend produced a lawyer and a part-time judge. Fort Bend, when it invests in its students, can produce excellence. I am very concerned that the schools have not been invested in that need the most help. I am also concerned that rather than distributing the students equally, maybe considering one of the proposals that maybe allowed everyone to temporarily, so we're told, temporarily be rezoned. We're only focusing on a small segment that does not, in the end, help Ridge Point. Ridge Point is still above 100%. My neighborhood is Winfield Lakes. I bought my home in Winfield Lakes for a purpose. I wanted my nephew and niece, who I am helping raise, to go to Hightower High School. They live in my house. I had to plan for them to go to Hightower High School, which is right across the street. And when they miss the bus, my nephew, who's in 9th grade, has to walk home 1.6 miles. If you rezone him to Willow Ridge High School, the only way for him to walk currently, because there is no throughway, is to walk 9.8 miles. 9.8 miles, crossing the Fort Bend Tollway. So crossing a freeway to get home, because there is no solution right now to increase enrollment and increase the desire to go to Willow Ridge High School from all places. I've said many times that if y'all would focus on maybe the things that make Willow Ridge great. Willow Ridge has been known for its music program. Marshall, named after Thurgood Marshall, why is that not focusing on law? I would happily teach there.
Thank you,
I would volunteer my time. Just to focus on everybody.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your comments. Please hold your applause. Mrs. Tossan, do you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, just real quick. We normally do not respond after audience items because we are not allowed to, because if there are comments made that are not on our agenda, we're not allowed to respond to those. So as a habit, we do not do that. Because some of the comments were made about things that are on our agenda, I number one, wanted to say, I think Mrs. Brown left, but one of her questions was, why was P-TECH not selected for Marshall High School? I want to make sure that question gets answered. I think it's along the lines of what we were asking earlier. Can you guys answer that question?
So administration was brought in, and there were discussions that were held. Initially, the application process asked for 3 early college high schools at these campuses. So during those conversations, there were members of administration that felt that because of the close proximity of HCC to Marshall High School, that it made sense to have the early college high school program there for Marshall High School. In those conversations as well, there were members of the Willow Ridge community and members of the Hightower community, the administrative community, that felt that P-TECH should be what would be at Willow Ridge and at Hightower. So there were administrators involved in that decision when they were made.
Okay, I appreciate you answering that question. I think there are some more that were submitted that I'm sure that we'll take a look at and might want those answered as well. Lastly, I just wanted to say, I wanted to remind us, Mrs. James talked earlier about the 2014 feeder pattern alignment and boundary that we did in 2014. And one of the things that we as a board said was that we were leaving the Marshall and Willow Ridge boundaries alone at the time in order to focus on programming and in order to focus on raising student achievement at those schools. That was specifically discussed. I can say, I think this board can say, that that has been done somewhat and perhaps has not been done enough. Early literacy has been opened, early intervention has been opened. We're moving forward with early college. There are several things that have been expanded. There is lots of resources that go into those schools. And so I just wanted to remind us in 2014, the conversation that we had, so that when we're talking about programming and things going forward, I mean, we just, student achievement is what we talk about all the time as a board, actually. And so I take some of these comments to heart, and it's certainly, I think, what has driven us the past few years, but I don't think we've gotten there. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mrs. Tossan. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.